Yo, my name's Grimly. I'm currently a top 5 challenger player in OCE for TFT, and this is my guide on my favorite comp this set, Velkoz Reroll. Velkoz Reroll is my favorite comp because it's very powerful, very explosive, and very fun to see everyone's board get one shot. So I'm going to give you everything you need to know to master this comp, and you're going to have a lot of success with this comp. As you can see, my win rate and my top 4 rate with this comp is very high. So let's get right into it. I've broken this guide down into 5 sections: the final comp, early game, items, augments, and positioning. So let's talk about the level 7 board for Velkoz Reroll. And whether or not we have Sorcerer +1, we're actually going to be playing this same board. If we have Sorcerer +1, with this board we're going to hit 4 Sorcerer. But since we don't have Sorcerer +1, it's actually okay to stay level 7 instead of trying to get level 8 for 4 Sorcerer, since going from 2 to 4 Sorcerer only adds 25 AP, and our gold is better off spent fully upgrading our board and hitting Velkoz 3 before going level 8. Once we fully upgrade our board and hit Velkoz 3, then we can go level 8 for Taric for more frontline and also 4 Sorcerer. In this situation where we have Sorcerer +1 at level 7, do not get baited by an early Ari into going 6 Sorcerer instead of 4 Multicaster. It's actually a lot weaker, especially because Teemo and Talia's abilities are actually very powerful. Teemo gives healing debuff and Talia's CC is often the determining factor in a lot of fights. When we have Sorcerer +1, at level 8, we're going to add Azir for 4 Strategist. And then at level 9, the best options are going to be Scion for a very strong frontline, or Heimerdinger to shred the entire board with 1 Meccano and 2 Shrinko. And when we don't have Sorcerer +1, at level 9 we just add Azir for 4 Strategist. The last thing about the final board is do not waste your gold on 3-starring anything other than Velkoz or Sonar, since Teemo, Talia and Swain do not need to be 3-starred to be good, and Velkoz 3-star is going to have enough damage with Sonar to one-shot the entire board in most cases. So in the early game, we want to play around 3 Void, and then we can slowly pivot towards 4 Multicaster. So this is an example of a very strong opener for Velkoz Reroll. And then at level 5, we can add in Talia or Teemo for 2 Multicaster. And then at level 6, we can add in Swain for more frontline. And we have 2 options at level 6. Either we can stay with this board if our Swain and Taric aren't upgraded, or if we can't find 4 Multicaster. But as soon as we can find 4 Multicaster, as long as our Swain or Taric is 2-starred, we're going to have enough frontline to drop down to just Swain and Taric frontline. And then we can put in 4 Multicaster for a very strong backline. So from this spot, once we go level 7, we want to play either Lux or Jarvan, whichever we can hit first. Let's say we play Lux, we have 4 Sorcerer, which is great. And as soon as we find Jarvan, we actually want to drop Taric even if he's upgraded for Jarvan, because Jarvan's going to give us Strategist anyway, which is AP for our whole backline. And the Radiant item is also very strong. And this board is going to be super stable at level 7, even with 1-star Jarvan and 1-star Lux. As long as Swain is upgraded and Velkoz is upgraded, that's really all that matters. If you can't play around Velkoz or Void early, you just play your strongest board to save as much HP as possible, and then you can always pivot towards the Velkoz comp as long as you have the right items, which I'm going to talk about next. So there are 2 mandatory items for this comp. First is Ionic Spark to shred the front line so that we can get through tanks. And you may be wondering, is Static Shiv good enough for shred? The answer is no. It's because Static Shiv is too slow. It needs 3 auto attacks to proc, and by the time the Static Shiv procs, let's say we put it on Talia or Teemo, by the time the Static Shiv procs, our Velkoz and Sonar would have already used their abilities. So we really need Spark so that the first Velkoz and Sonar ultimate do a lot of damage to the front line, and then we can one-shot some units. And the other mandatory item is going to be Shojin for Velkoz. Blue buff is also okay as a substitute, but Shojin is a lot better. The reason why is Shojin gives an extra 15 AP, which is significant. And also Shojin makes it so that Velkoz always takes 4 auto attacks to cast. But I would build blue buff if you absolutely have to. Shojin's just much better. Oh, and for the Spark, we always want that on Swain so that we can get triple tank item Jarvan later. So now Velkoz has Shojin, we want to give him a damage multiplier item. The 3 damage multipliers are Jewel Gauntlet, Giant Slayer, and Guardbreaker, which will multiply with his already high AP from Sorcerer and Strategist. Jewel Gauntlet is going to be the most consistent damage amplifier item, But Giant Slayer and Guardbreaker are also just as good. You would just want to scout in your lobby to see if there's a lot of shields or if there's a lot of high HP units, so you can decide which is the best for your lobby. And then for the third item, Gunblade is really good for healing, especially if you have gargoyles on frontline, so that you can heal up your very tanky frontline. I think Gunblade is probably the best, especially once you get 3-starred. Your Velkoz almost never dies because he has healing. However, double damage amplifier is also very good. So Hodge is going to be a really good item on Velkoz only when you have Jeweled Gauntlet or Jeweled Lotus. That way you can benefit from the crit chance, and the healing from Hodge is actually going to help a lot in certain matchups. Like any matchups that have rogue units, the Hodge will help us stay alive if the rogue units get too close to Velkoz. So for Swain, we already have Spark on him. The best second item would be Sunfire. Morello is also okay if we need anti-heal. And then we just want to put a third tank item on Swain. Gargoyles is going to be the best, but Bramble Vest and Declaw are good depending on matchup. Warmorks is also okay. However, Swain already gives himself a lot of HP, so we should prioritize Armor and Magic Resist over HP. So for Jarvan, we want to give him 2 tank items and leave the third slot open for a Radiant item. The 2 best tank items will be Protector's Vow and Warmorks, but any other tank item is also okay. So for Sona, we always want to give her a Chalice. This is because it gives her starting mana so that she can cast very quickly, and it also gives her and Velkoz 20 AP, and if she can cast earlier into the fight, the attack speed is going to help Velkoz. The other thing you want to put on Sona is Sorcerer Emblem. If you can ever get Sorcerer Emblem, Sona is going to be the best user, especially because it gives extra starting mana. So the best legend for this comp is going to be Ornn. The reason why is because the Ornn items are actually really good. Deathfire Grasp and Manazane are really good on Velkoz. Spirit Visage, Eternal Winter, and also Hullbreaker are going to be really good items for Jarvan. The other reason why Ornn is very good is because the 3-2 and the 4-2 augments for Ornn are actually going to always give us item anvils or component anvils and gold. And this way we can actually find a lot of good items for our comp. That way we can get 3 item Velkoz, and then 3 item Swain, 3 item Jarvan, 3 item Sona. And if we have any leftover items, we can always put them on Lux. So let's talk about augments. Sorcerer +1 augments are really good for this comp so that we can reach 4 Sorcerer, 4 Multicaster at level 7. Jeweled Lotus augments are also very good for this comp so that our Velkoz can do insane damage without needing a Jeweled Gauntlet, and also makes any crit chance from Hodge or Guardbreaker very valuable on our Velkoz. Strategist +1 is very good for this comp. Any of the ticket augments are good for this comp since we're going to be rerolling. So here are the rest of the good augments for this comp. There is a lot of them. They either give us items, the chance to get a Sorcerer Emblem or a Strategist Emblem, or just generic combat augments. So let's go over the positioning for this comp. You almost always want to position in this formation, and the reason you want your Swain and Jarvan to be touching each other is that the spark from the Swain will reach whichever unit walks up next to Jarvan. If Jarvan stays here, then the spark may not reach the unit on this side. And also, you want your Lux to be opposite whichever unit has the tank items for the enemy team, because Lux's ability actually reduces magic resist. So if she targets a tank, it's actually good so that she can shred their magic resist, and that way Velkoz can kill it quicker. You're going to want your Sona to be directly opposite the enemy's carries. That way when Sona ults through the biggest clump of enemies, it hits the enemy's carries in the back. You also want your Sona in the corner next to the Velkoz. Even though you're not getting full value from the Chalice, you want the Sona ult to always give Velkoz attack speed. That way Velkoz can get off his 2nd, 3rd, 4th cast really quickly with the attack speed from Sona. The Talia is right next to the Velkoz so that if any unit comes close to Velkoz, the Talia will ult the unit, and that way the unit is a lot easier for Velkoz to kill if they can't cast their ability. For example, this Jarvan, if this Talia knocks up this Jarvan and then Velkoz shoots his orb, the Velkoz can kill the Jarvan before the Jarvan even ults, even if he's full mana. And the same with the Talia against the Nasus. If during the fight the Nasus is almost about to cast, the Talia knocks up the Nasus, the Velkoz shoots his orb, Nasus dies before he can get his ability off. Teemo's just here so that our clump is in the middle. That way if his Jarvan ults, most likely it will ult in the middle. Sometimes it can knock up the Velkoz, but it's almost never going to knock up the Sona. The only time you would ever change position is if the enemy has a Zephyr. For example, if they have a Zephyr on this Garen, and they're Zephyr'ing your Jarvan, like this, what you can do is you can actually put Teemo up the top. That way Teemo gets hit by the Zephyr. And it doesn't matter that Teemo's frontline because the whole fight is over within like 10 seconds. So if Teemo gets Zephyr'd, it's much better than Jarvan getting Zephyr'd. The other thing you need to consider is if the enemy has a Shroud, you probably don't want your units to get shrouded. However, I wouldn't change your position. If they have a Shroud on this side, I wouldn't change your position because you still want your Sona to be opposite the Azir and Lux. That way whenever Sona ults, she's going to kill the Azir and Lux. And the other thing is, if you're against assassins, you want your Velkoz to be on the opposite side of the assassins. So if you're against a Zed and Katarina, let's say the Zed is in this side and the Katarina is on this side, and they're 3-starred. The Zed is going to be more of a threat than this Katarina. The reason why is because when Katarina ults, it puts daggers down, and then if her rogue procs, she's going to teleport back to the daggers anyway. So we actually want to be on the same side as Katarina. That way, when Katarina ults and we damage her and proc her rogue, she's going to get stuck here. And then this Zed is going to get stuck on our Jarvan. And when Jarvan ults to the clump, the Zed will actually get stunned as well. And this position is the best against the assassins. So that brings us to the end of the guide. If you have any more questions about this comp or anything related to TFT, please feel free to leave a comment. I will read every single comment and respond as best I can. And if you thought this was a good guide and it was helpful, please like the video and also subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. Thank you.